Welcome back everybody, it's me E-Man, and today we're going to review Captain America Civil War. Isn't that right, under Ruse?
Hey everyone.
If you're watching this, this is the spoiler review. This is your spoiler alert. You can watch my spoiler-free version if you do not want Captain America Civil War ruined for you. Again, this is your final warning. This is the spoiler version where I am going to talk about things that will ruin the movie for you if you care about spoilers. If not, welcome. Okay, let's jump into it and get into a quick intro. The Avengers are facing some heavy political pressure to hold them accountable for all of their past actions and activities. As a result, different ideologies are dividing Captain America and Iron Man. Okay, let's get straight into the good.
The good.
Similar to Captain America 2, within just a few minutes, we're thrown right into the middle of some action and high suspense that sets the tone for the rest of the movie. Almost every character gets their moment to shine and show off their different abilities throughout the whole film. The many different fight scenes are going to keep your eyes glued to the screen. There's rarely a dull moment, and the overall pacing of the film was done very effectively given the fact that it was a little over 2.5 hours long. I think it's also very safe to say that the airport scene is probably one of the best scenes in the entire film. Now there are so many little surprises that happen. Rarely do I get a chance to say this, but I think that the trailers did a pretty good job of not giving everything away. They changed them and altered them just enough that when you watch the movie, it'll still come off as feeling new. Now I should say by the time I filmed this, I had stopped watching all the trailers after the Spider-Man reveals. I don't know what Marvel decided to leak out or not. The themes and the writing were done in a very believable, coherent, and authentic way. The motivation of many of the characters never came off as forced or unnatural in my opinion, and this led to a lot of different plot twists that happened throughout the film, some of which were mildly predictable. It's actually kind of hard to choose a side between one of the characters because the moral lines were heavily grayed. As a fan of the Civil War comics, which is an excellent read by the way, I was very appreciative that Marvel was able to stay true to the themes and the feelings of the original source material, given the fact that they had to change a lot of details for the movie. They did a really good job of handling issues like the collateral damage of cities, the loss of life, and the responsibility of great power. What's even more interesting is how this film was able to maintain such a serious tone, but still find time to put in humorous moments. Of course, this didn't make the movie into a comedy, but it did stay true to that good old Marvel fun that we've all become accustomed to. So let's get into some of the characters. Now, it's no surprise that Spider-Man was going to be a major feature in this film. His scenes are probably one of the best highlights of the film overall, given his humor and the action that he does bring to the table. Luckily, what we see in the trailer is just a tiny glimpse of what's to come with Spidey. One thing that the trailer doesn't tell you is that Spidey is in this a whole lot more than you might think. Given Sony's newfound partnership with Marvel, you can tell that Spider-Man in this film is really just a setup for the upcoming Spider-Man film, Homecoming. By the way, was it just me or did anyone else notice the constant references to the word homecoming? The string of words that activated Winter Soldier's brainwashing were really random, but it seemed very coincidental that homecoming just so happened to be one of those words, especially since Sony just so happened to announce the Spider-Man movie title being Homecoming. I found it kind of funny that Stark kept making all those comments about Aunt May being so hot, because I think at that time he was just saying what everybody in the theater was thinking at that moment. And plus she was kind of hot, especially when you compare her to her predecessors. Oh. I get the impression that some people are going to have mixed emotions about Peter Parker though. I won't be one of them. I like this Peter Parker. Yes, Sony is rebooting the character. And no, Sony is not doing another origin story. Luckily for us, Civil War took that for us by jump-starting it and telling us a little bit of background in this movie. He's been Spider-Man for 6 months. People have seen him even on YouTube. He's still a kid either in high school or maybe he's entering college. Either way, he's young, he's immature, immature and he's inexperienced. What I think hardcore comic fans need to remember is just that we're not getting the Peter Parker that was in the source material. That was a much older, wiser Peter Parker. I think we have to kind of dial back and remember what makes Peter Parker likable in the first place. And what made people always gravitate to the Spider-Man character was the fact that he was always relatable. He made mistakes all the time and he had flaws. He tries to remain being a regular kid who has homework to do and girl troubles and stuff like that, all while still having these amazing abilities and trying to have a sense of responsibility for these great powers. I think Sony was very wise to go this route and partner up with Marvel, and I think the future is bright for making Spider-Man a top-tier character in both universes. Now, if you're a comic fan, then you're well aware of the budding romance between Vision and Scarlet Witch. I appreciated the fact that they're allowing this relationship to grow organically. I also like the fact that they were showing these subtle hints that Vision might just become a little bit more human. During his little distraction where he accidentally shot down War Machine, I almost thought that they were going to actually show him start shedding a tear like they did in the comics. Paul Rudd as Ant-Man was also a really good addition. I felt like his presence in this film was really more so a subtle tease for Ant-Man 2. He finally goes big and it was an awesome thing to see on the screen. Now, as for Zemo, I think that he made for a pretty good villain. I thought it was really interesting to see how his motivations drove all of his actions. Similar to how Tom Hiddleston's Loki character got developed, we're given a bit more complex villain in the character of Zemo. I like the fact that he was driven by the loss of his family. I like the fact that he wasn't super powered either. I think that's part of staying true to the spy genre that has always been the basis of Captain America movies in the first place. Besides, in many of these espionage films, the villains are not always super powered. They're usually just evil geniuses that have really corrupt ambitions. So by not giving Zemo any type of superpowers, I think it grounded both the character and the film so much more. Black Panther, yes, he was awesome. And yes, I'm biased because he's the first black superhero, and because, you know, I'm black. I was so happy to see Chadwick Boseman bring this character to life. From his African accent, his sense of royalty, all the way down to his proficient cat-like ninja fighting style, he truly embodied what the Black Panther character always intended, and that's to always have a sense of pride in African culture. His role in the film definitely made me way more optimistic for the upcoming Black Panther film. What was even more exciting to see were the few instances where we got a taste of what Wakandan people and culture were really like. I got a little geeked when I saw T'Challa's female bodyguard size up Black Widow like that. If you're familiar with the Black Panther comic, you know that the female security guard for Wakanda is no joke. More specifically, I also noticed an interesting detail where there were a whole lot more darker skinned Africans casted in this film. While this might not be a very big deal for some of you out there that are not sensitive to the lack of representation of minorities on screen, I think this was a major achievement towards progress. There's been a disparaging issue in Hollywood, not just with minorities in general, but when you get even more specific with black people, darker skins have always had a harder time to being equated with beauty and goodness in general. So by increasing this level of darker skinned representation within these movies, I'm a little bit more confident that Marvel will do right by Black Panther in their solo movie. I think one of the biggest things that impressed me about this movie was the fact that it was able to juggle all of these characters all at once. With this huge cast of characters, it never felt like anyone suffered from a lack of screen time. Not only that, but Civil War still managed to serve as a platform to jumpstart other solo movies. I think that's more than enough. Let's get to the bad.
The bad.
What? There's some bad? I know, right? I was shocked too, but bear with me. There are only two issues that I had a problem with. Now, while I do think that Zemo's character does ground the film a little bit, I think that his elaborate plan was a little bit too far-fetched. If his goal was to have the Avengers destroy themselves, he could have done that in a much easier way. I don't think that he needed to go get the codes, lure the Avengers to the sleeping Winter Soldiers, only to kill those soldiers, and then show the video of Stark's parents. I just feel like there was a much easier way for them to go about causing causing the infighting amongst the Avengers. To my second point, I was so disappointed that they killed off the other Winter Soldiers. During the flashback with Bucky, they showed how powerful and how dangerous these other Winter Soldiers were. There was a lot of anticipation being built up to see these soldiers just be set loose. I thought it would have been absolutely perfect had you had Captain America, Winter Soldier, Iron Man, and Black Panther team up to fight against those 5 Winter Soldiers. Moreover, they could have totally included that fight scene and still have Zemo reveal the parent video and still have the final battle that we get with the emotional Tony Stark. We could have had the best of both worlds, where the heroes unite, they fight the common enemy, but then they fall apart during an intense emotional moment. That was a missed opportunity in my opinion. See, that wasn't so bad. Let's get to the reason.
The reason.
I think it's safe to say that Marvel has done it again. Civil War had a lot of expectations going into this, and I think that most of them got met. Now, I know a lot of people want to compare this movie to Batman vs. Superman because they share a lot of similar themes. I think that while this may seem like a very natural comparison to make, I think it's also a little bit unfair to do so. You see, Batman vs. Superman had a completely different agenda. It was a setup movie for all other DC films that are coming up, not to mention the fact that they're trying to hurry up and play catch up in this comic book movie genre. Now, Civil War, on the other hand, is a solo movie for Captain America, which happens to also be a setup film for some other movies and continue the overall story arc within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I think a much better comparison for Civil War would be to its predecessor, Captain America 2: Winter Soldier. So for example, Avengers Age of Ultron was compared best to Avengers 1. It had the same director and basically was trying to top what the previous movie had done. Unfortunately, Avengers 2 disappointed because it gave us more of the same and really didn't give us anything new to elevate the movie. All we got were superhero team-up moves and 3 new minor characters. Well, 2. I suppose if I had to compare the two, Captain America Civil War comes in slightly lower than Captain America Winter Soldier. I got to give the edge to Winter Soldier for originality. It was the first time we saw an espionage film that just so happened to have superheroes in it. It was the first time we saw superheroes cross into a different genre, thus making it rather hard to top that. All you can do is copy it, you can't top it. In my opinion, there was no real way for Cap 3 to be better than Cap 2. Civil War gives us more of the same of what we got in Cap 2, except for the fact that it does 2 things uniquely different. This time around, we're given 2 major characters in Spider-Man and Black Panther, and it accomplished the seemingly difficult task of juggling many characters all at once. The movie was probably about 55% Captain America's story, 25% new major characters, and 20% everybody else. So when it comes down to the rating for Captain America Civil War, I have to give it a 9 out of 10. Overall, Civil War was a very good movie. I'm not sure if IMAX or 3D is very necessary for this. When I saw it in my screening, it was a standard format and I was very pleased with what I saw. So maybe you could save a couple bucks with that. Also, at the end of my screening, there was only 1 mid-credit scene. If there is a final end credit scene later on, I'll make a note somewhere on this video and let you know. I'd say Civil War is a must-see in theaters, and you can feel free planning your weekend to go and check it out. So let me ask you this, what were your thoughts about the movie? Let me know down in the comments down below and let's talk about it. Well, thank you for joining me. If you're new, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at spoiler-free. And always check out my main website, emansmoviereviews.com, to get more of my reviews. As always, I got more reviews to do for you. And until then, I'll see you later.